Hey everybody, welcome to the Wrestling News Brief for this Thursday, October 14th. And coming to you a little bit later in the evening here, and I just want to jump into some news here as we try to keep this short and sweet. And we do these, of course, periodically, and it's not always done when only blockbuster news comes out, but rather when there's just interesting news, maybe that you haven't heard yet. We like to share it with you and give a little bit of our spin on it. So let's jump into it. And as you saw in the title of this episode, that the reason for Bray Wyatt's release has been revealed. And I have to say, in part, it has been revealed. So let's jump into it. This is from WrestlingNews.co. And the headline for this is WWE reportedly had issues with Bray Wyatt's weight, and source claims, quote, Bray was being difficult. So let's jump into exactly where this information came from, and if we can find out more details. Again, this is from the article on WrestlingNews.co. On today's Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast, Andrew Zarian, I think his name is, reported that WWE felt that Bray Wyatt was difficult and he had weight issues. This is from Zarian. Quote, I have some more information about his release. I want to be careful with this. I'm not even going to allude to where it came from or who told me this. I would say that is probably one of the most legitimate people I've spoken to that would be able to address this. He continued, Bray was being difficult. I'm going to fill in a lot. I'm not even going to quote here because I have the quote and I don't want to quote it. He was a little difficult. He had some performance issues in the ring and he had some weight issues. And I'm not saying that's a reason, but you kind of piece things together as to the things when you evaluate a talent and you're like, we need this, we need that, and this is the plan moving forward. Sometimes the decision is easier to make if you make it more difficult for them to make that decision. There's so many different variables. There is no one reason. By the way, let me just put it out there. Financial, yes, there was a financial issue. There were plenty of other scenarios here. I don't think he was happy, and I would tell you that these decisions are not cut and dry. It should be noted that friends of Bray Wyatt say that he's healthy and cleared to wrestle. WWE's public explanation for Wyatt's release was that it was due to budget cuts. While there has been a lot of speculation about Wyatt possibly landing in AEW, Tony Khan said this week that he has not spoken with him. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez previously reported that Wyatt's likely landing spot is Impact Wrestling. You can check out the... Okay. So there you have it. When you look at this, you come away still a little confused, but with a little more information on his release. That it potentially was weight issues, performance issues in the ring. The performance part of the ring, I don't understand exactly what that means. What was he having a problem with performance-wise in the ring? Because if he had one, I didn't notice. And I don't think any of the fans noticed he had a performance issue in the ring. I certainly missed that. He had weight issues? Well, what? Because he didn't fit with the typical Vince McMahon idea of a pro wrestler? Is that the problem? He had a little bit of a belly, but I actually think he lost weight. I think he lost weight from when he was in the Wyatt family. I mean, the weight issue to me is a non-issue, if that truly is one of the things. But here's what I gather from this in totality, that there were several contributing factors to Bray Wyatt being released. And it actually could have been in small part due to budget cuts. So WWE's official statement it was because of budget cuts. And that actually probably isn't a lie, because that was one of the likely several reasons why they decided to let him go. So they gave you part of the truth. They gave you a piece of the picture, a piece of the puzzle. And that is their out. So essentially they aren't lying. They're just not giving you the whole truth. So, if that's the case, that Bray Wyatt was a little difficult. Again, I'm not sure what they mean by difficult. Maybe difficult, stubborn. They're being very broad. Again, this source is from Andrew Zarian on the Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast, a credible podcast. So I have no reason to believe that this is not credible. So I'm going to take this at face value. But Zarian, who said that Bray is being difficult from a source that he has within WWE. So it's a little bit of playing telephone here. You got to be careful. So I'm going to take it at face value, but that could obviously change in the future once we get the full story. The financial issue that he's speaking of, perhaps it is the amount of money that Bray Wyatt believed he was worth versus what WWE thought he was worth. And don't forget, anytime a publicly traded organization, or rather private organization, is going to hire an employee, they have to hire you as an asset, meaning they need to make money off of you. You're an asset. You're a living human being asset, but you're an asset that they need to utilize to maximize profit. So anytime you're hired by an organization, you're being used to make a profit, meaning that you could make the organization $3 million, but they only pay you $1 million. So they've net profit on you of $2 million, if that makes sense. So perhaps he felt that he was being shafted in contract negotiations. Again, that's my speculation. When they talk about financial issues, that's my guess. Merchandise certainly wasn't a problem for him. Royalties coming in from merchandise certainly wasn't a problem for him. And I'm sure he's getting paid to this day with any remaining merchandise they have in the WWE shop store. I haven't looked lately. But again, this is being vague and vague for a reason. Zarian has the quote from the source, but he doesn't want to reveal anything specific because it might put his source at risk. And I understand that. So he's being vague purposefully. But to summarize before I get on to the next topic, it looks like weight, financial issues, quote unquote, difficult, doesn't get more vague than that. All were a contributing factor to him leaving WWE and WWE letting him go. And of course, budget cuts, which again, in part is true, I think. I mean, who wouldn't want to slice their budget so there's less expenses going out the door and more revenue coming in? I mean, that's never not true for an organization anytime they let people go. It's the only reason they would let people go. So, all right. Well, and the impact, if it's true what Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez are saying about Wyatt going to Impact, well, you know, I have mixed feelings about that because AEW right now is the hot spot to be. And I believe Tony Khan when he said he hasn't spoken with Wyatt. So I'd be slightly disappointed that he's not in AEW because right now that is the scorching hot place to be. And I think he could have a lot of fun there, and he would absolutely pop a rating, just like everyone else who has returned there to pro wrestling in AEW has. But at the same time, Impact needs a little help. They are now the forgotten stepchild of pro wrestling, given all the attention on WWE now and AEW. That Impact, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, there's Impact too. You don't ever really look at that and consider it a true third option, but it is. Among others, Independence, New Japan, Ring of Honor, among others. So it's an option, and I'm all for all wrestling promotions being as big as they can. If he ends up in Impact, I think that will help Impact immediately. They need star power. They need a little bit of a buzz, and Bray Wyatt going to Impact could provide them that buzz. Now, how long it lasts, we'll have to see if it happens, so, but the fact that he is cleared to wrestle, I believe. So Bray Wyatt's going to become a story. He's going to become a story wherever he lands. So, all right, let's get on to the second piece of this show here. And that's Roman Reigns and his merchandise sales. Now, again, this is also, well, actually it's from Bleacher Report, but the source of this information is actually from wrestling.co. But here's the article. The top merchandise seller in WWE is also its lead heel, according to Paul Davis of wrestlingnews.co. Quote, "We were told that he is the all-time merchandise seller among top heel wrestlers in the history of the company. One source told us that his merchandise sales are at the level of John Cena. And it's more impressive because Cena sold a ton of merchandise as a babyface, while Reigns is supposed to be a despised heel. If accurate, that's a huge deal. Heels have never been huge merchandise movers, while Cena is among the biggest in the company's history. For Reigns to be on par with Cena is indicative of just how strong fans have connected with this version of his character. The vile, cerebral, sometimes gaslighting heel has become the brightest spot of WWE television thanks to a layered character. His interactions with the cousins Usos and the chemistry he has with special counsel Paul Heyman have all contributed. That his in-ring work is as good as it's ever been only helps to enhance. And it closes out by saying, given the quality of the overall presentation, this news shouldn't surprise anyone. Well, it is surprising. If it wasn't surprising to anyone, why is it a story, right? I mean, you don't put things that are commonplace as stories, okay? But that said, it is a bit surprising, but I also understand the psychology of it. Heels do not traditionally sell merchandise. At least, it's not that they don't sell merchandise. They're very rarely in the top half of those earners, which is why a lot of people like to turn babyface, because it can help their bottom line. It lines their pockets. They sell more merch traditionally as a babyface, and heels don't. And to see Roman Reigns in this position, selling a hell of a lot of merchandise, I think the Bloodline t-shirt is going to be a top seller and one of the most, I think one of the staples and symbols of this entire run will be the shirt they're wearing right now that just says the Bloodline, and it has Roman Reigns at the literal head of the table. That is going to be mark my words, a symbolic image of this time for Roman. And it's likely contributing to a lot of his merchandise moving. So the point is I'm making, it's surprising. You don't see this a lot. And it's weird because he's not like a cool heel. Fans aren't really cheering for him, although recently they've started to get behind him to recognize just how great this character is. But he's not trying to be a cool heel. Like, he is all in on being a total a-hole. You know, so if the fans start to cheer him, that's not his fault. It's not like he's the character or creative is trying to make him cool, which undermines the whole point of being a heel, which we see so many times again and again throughout pro wrestling, not just in WWE, all promotions, which I think is a big mistake. But Roman's all in. And the fact that he is a top merchandise seller is awesome. And I wouldn't move a thing, right? I wouldn't change anything. It always makes you wonder, what the hell a babyface Roman Reigns could look like now? What would that look like? You know, that's a hell of a topic for another show. What, that should be the next, random show we do is, what does a babyface Roman Reigns look like? And when does he turn? You know, that's a fun conversation to have. So, all right, and the final story I have here is AJ Styles and Omos nearly were split by WWE. This is from Bleacher Report, but they give credit to WrestleVotes, who reported WWE officials came close to splitting the tag team champions during this year's draft. That is until the, quote, power or people of power spoke up and expressed thoughts on how Omos isn't quite ready for singles yet, and they actually listened. It is clear to anyone who watches Styles and Omos perform each week that the company goes out of its way to protect the big man from overexposure. It knows his weaknesses and masks them, typically using Styles when the situation calls for longer in-ring time. Omos has the presence and has shown flashes of connection with the audience. Now he just needs experience. The more he works with the likes of Styles and Orton, the better he'll become. He is currently under the learning tree, and rather than WWE officials trying to rush the process and put him in a position to fail, they should take this time and let him be the most capable and competent he can be. It will benefit both him and WWE in the long run. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't. And I've already heard people complaining about they're tired of seeing Omos and AJ versus the RK Bro. Well, I would say to them, I would say to them, first of all, it hasn't been that long. Okay, what, a month or two tops? Number two, it does help Omos in the long run. It's a little bit of repetitiveness right now for getting Omos to where they want him to be, which is the reason why this team is still together, is to get him where they want him to be. Thirdly, AJ Styles, or rather Randy and Riddle, who are they going to work with beyond them? Who, in terms of star power and talent, who's next? The Viking Raiders? I mean, what's the next tag team that they're going to face? So this is, I think, the best thing right now for Omos, and I've speculated about that, and it seems as if it's confirmed too, that they're going to wait until they feel Omos is ready to move on to the singles role. And until they feel that way, AJ is going to be in this tag team with him. Now, you can debate whether or not you feel like that's also handicapping AJ and seeing a great run out of him in a singles role, which they could use. But is it worth the sacrifice of trying to help Omos get to where they want him to be? Timing, experience, psychology, all of that's needed for being a great performer. He's got the presence. That's something you can't teach. He's got just an aura about him. He commands your attention. Those are things that are really, really difficult to teach, if not impossible. So he's got the intangibles. He's got the quote it. But now it's just like this article said from WrestleVotes, which was from Bleacher Report. Always give credit. That is certainly the most important thing. And that's something you can't teach is experience. So I absolutely understand the decision. So we could see AJ and Omos in tag team action for maybe the next several weeks to months. However long they feel it's going to take, and whenever they feel that it's time for them to move on and maybe move AJ to a babyface singles role. Possible. And maybe they split there. But right now, the tag team divisions on men and women are very, very thin. Women, it doesn't exist. They literally don't have a tag team division. And for the men, it's just the same. It's the usual suspects. Of course, we've got Hit Row coming to SmackDown, I believe. So, I mean, they're injecting some new talent. But right now, especially on the Raw side, the tag team division is not looking good, at least in the short term. So let me know what you guys think about this. Would you keep Omos in a tag team with AJ? Yes, the expense, the cost of that, the currency of that is AJ stuck in a tag team when you know he can be a great heel or babyface. He does both very well. But the payoff is the product you're getting for that currency is a potentially main event Omos in WWE. Now, he's not going to have 5-star matches that we deem 5-star today, but as an attraction, he could be big money. You know, they're clearly protecting him. He hasn't even taken a finish, much less left his feet, much less lost a match. He is right now a big deal to WWE, and you can see it. So is the juice worth the squeeze, as they say? Time will tell. Time will tell, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about that, about Roman Reigns' merchandise sales being number one on par with John Cena, which is insane. I mean, Roman Reigns is making boatloads of money right now. Kudos to him. He deserves it. And yeah, so, and also obviously the Bray Wyatt incident or reasoning that I talked about at the beginning of the show. So interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. You can email me. You can make that part of the mailbag every week at realwwpodcast@gmail.com or call in and leave a message at 518-952-0247. Everybody, thanks so much for listening to this news brief, and I'll be talking to you next time.